warm up. Up next, arm circles backward for 30 seconds. Arm circles backwards. Your arms should be straight throughout the duration of this exercise. Stand with your feet slightly apart and you're going to make large circles. You also want to try and keep your ribs down. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, arm circles forwards for 30 seconds. Arm circles forwards. You're going to stand with your feet slightly apart and your arms need to be straight as you make large circles in a forward motion. You also want to try and keep your ribs down as you're doing this. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, Bondarenkos for 30 seconds. Bondarenkos. To begin, have your hands under your shoulders. With your fingers facing forward, you're going to use your body weight leaning over your wrists. Gradually increase your range and then you're going to perform a wrist circle after each rep. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, elbow circles for 30 seconds. Elbow circles. Standing with your feet slightly apart, you're now going to make circles at your elbows. Move in one direction and then swap and rotate in the opposite direction. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, hip circles for 30 seconds. Hip circles. To begin, stand with your feet shoulder width apart. You're then going to use your pelvis to draw an imaginary circle with your hips in one direction. You're then going to swap and go the opposite way. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, squat to pike for 30 seconds. Squat to pike. Stand with your feet together. You're then going to drop into a squat, keeping your heels down. You're then going to extend your legs, straighten them into a pike position. Make sure that your knees are locked out straight when you come up to the pike. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, wrist flexion for 30 seconds. Wrist flexion. Start with your hands underneath your shoulders. You're then going to place the back of your hands onto the ground. Fingers will be facing your knees. Using your body weight, you're going to gradually increase your range by applying pressure down into your wrists. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Workout number 1. Up next, round, flat, hollow for 45 seconds. Round, flat, hollow back. Begin by having your hands directly under your shoulders. Tuck your pelvis and you're going to move through the 3 positions, which is round, flat, and hollow. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, round, flat, hollow for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, round, flat, hollow for 45 seconds. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Up next, body line front for 30 seconds. Body line front, lying between 2 benches with your chest on one and your feet on the other. Arms will be overhead You're going to tuck that pelvis by squeezing those glutes nice and tight. Remember to point those toes and engage your core. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, body line front for 30 seconds. Body lying back, lying between two benches with your shoulders on one and feet on the other. Arms should be overhead. You're going to tuck your pelvis, squeezing those glutes nice and tight, point your toes and have your core engaged. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, body line front for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, body line back for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, body line back for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, body line back for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Up next, front support for 30 seconds. Front support. To get into this position, you want to have your hands directly underneath your shoulders. You're going to be pushing the floor away so your shoulders will be protracted. Tuck your pelvis and squeeze your glutes tight. You want to point your toes and engage your core. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, re-support for 30 seconds. Rear support. Your hands are going to be directly under your shoulders. Your shoulders are going to be in a retracted position. So think about pinching your shoulder blades together. You'll also need to tuck your pelvis and squeeze your glutes tight. Remember to point those toes and engage your core throughout the exercise. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, front support for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, rear support for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 30 seconds. Up next, front support for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, re-support for 30 seconds. Up next, rest for 60 seconds. Box L handstand. You will need a box to perform this exercise. Walk out onto the box, starting with your feet on the edge, walking your hands back in to be directly under your shoulders. Try and keep your ribs in, tuck your pelvis and engage your core. Your elbows will also need to be locked out, and you can do this by elevating
Up next,
your scapulars.
rest for 30 seconds.
Up next, Box L handstand for 30 seconds. Try and hide your ears with your shoulders. Keep your feet together and think about pushing the floor away throughout the entire exercise, forcing your shoulders to remain in an open position. Fingers should be spread so that you are trying to grip the floor with the weight in your palm and your fingers.
Up next, rest for 30 seconds.
Up next, Box L handstand for 30 seconds.
Up next, rest for 30 seconds.
Up next, Box L handstand for 30 seconds.
Up next, cool down stretches.
Cool down stretches. Up next, German stretch for 30 seconds. German stretch. To begin, extend your legs out straight with your feet together. You're now going to extend your arms out behind you, retract the shoulder blades. The goal is to get your hands as close together as you can throughout the... Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, kneeling hip flexor for 30 seconds. Kneeling hip flexor. As you extend your first leg out straight, your foot should be out further in front of your knee. You want to keep your hips nice and square and press the back hip open. You're also going to try and think about pressing that hip flexor to the floor, and don't forget to breathe and relax.
Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, T-stretch for 30 seconds.
T-stretch. To begin, lie on your stomach. You're then going to extend one arm out to the side with your wrist in line with your shoulder. Rest your head, then using your opposite arm, you're then going to roll back onto one side, stretching the chest. Make sure you do this to both sides.
Up next, rest for 10 seconds. Up next, puppy for 30 seconds.
Puppy stretch. To get into this position, your hips need to be above your knees. You're then going to extend your arms out in front, keep those elbows locked straight, and then press your armpits to the floor. During this exercise, you're going to breathe deeply and relax.